Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 2021 Sophomore Portfolio Review Info Session. That is the reason for the season, as it were. And I am going to be your host today. I'm a assistant professor of graphic design. You may know me. My name is Sean Schumacher, and I'm really excited to introduce some of the fun information about the 2021 review, because things have changed a little bit, and I think the changes will have really simplified the process if you are kind of familiar with maybe what we had before. So let's take a look, shall we? All right. So this is also kind of a little different than we've done in the past, because this is part one of your info session. This video is your first part. And it contains all the information that you would normally have if you were to go to a session in person and see it presented in front of you. But it has the advantage of you being able to go back and review it if you should, maybe have a question about a requirement. It's all in here. That being said, you should still be, taking notes and paying pretty close attention to this thing. Don't put it on 1.5, times speed like it's a podcast. Don't just put it on in the background while you're doing other stuff. Try to focus on it, because it's pretty important, everything that's in here. This is your introduction to how the review is going to work this year. But that being said, there are some disadvantages of us doing this over video, namely that you can't really ask questions. There's just time doesn't work that way. So we have a part two, and this part, along with the video part, is mandatory. You do have to go to one of these Q&A sessions on Zoom. So our first one is going to be Tuesday, January 19th at noon. Our second will be Wednesday, February 17th at noon. And our last one will be Tuesday, April 6th, way out there in spring term, from noon to 1 p.m. And you can find the links to all of those on psu.gd/sophomore. That's where you can go to sign up. It's just psu.gd/sophomore. Whole lot of sophomore portfolio review information up right there, right now. And here's the other thing that people are always asking about right off the bat. When is this thing due? When is that going to happen? Well, that is going to happen this year, Sunday, January 6th at 8 p.m. That is our final deadline. And it is a very, very hard deadline for those of you who may not know. There's no wiggle room. You cannot submit at 8:01 p.m. Say, we are going to shut down the service at 8 p.m. You want to make sure that everything is up there, everything is correct before you submit, and that you are fully prepared for this process. The way that we recommend that you do that, you'll notice there's two dates up here. One's a little smaller, but that is really, in a lot of ways, the more important date, because that's the earliest you could submit to this thing. That is Thursday, June 3rd at 9 a.m. That's when we are opening submissions. And it is much better in this process to be, closer to that date than, the Sunday, June 6th date. You know how the internet works. It's not good. It's a real first draft of a service, the internet. There are technical problems that come up. There are all kinds of, just weird internet service stuff you might encounter. And if it's Sunday, June 6th, at say 7:35 p.m. and your internet goes down for half an hour, you're in trouble. You're in real trouble. And that's not something that we are going to, be able to fix. You had plenty of time to submit beforehand. So you got to have those submissions in on time, and aim for Thursday, June 3rd. Because that is going to be your safest bet. Sunday, June 6th at 8 p.m. is your very, very last second to submit. Where are these going? Well, check down here at the bottom. I guess it's over here. If I'm arrows. Anyway, I'm mirrored. Submit to psu.gd/SPR. It's right there. It's easy stuff. So, a lot of this is kind of about questions, answering the questions that you may have about the sophomore review, and really the most frequent ones, because again, I can't hear you. This is a one-directional kind of thing, this part. But the biggest question we always get every single year is, why? Why do we do this? Why a review? Well, it's easy. It's actually as easy as A, B, C, I like to say. So A, we want you to be ready for your junior year, because what comes next is a lot harder. You may have noticed as you've gotten into your sophomore year, the classes, they keep ratcheting up. They are not, just kind of fun and games like your 100 level classes. Not that those are fun and games, really. They're still pretty hard, but your sophomore classes are harder, and your junior classes are going to be a lot harder. I always like to tell people, the sophomore portfolio review, putting together a portfolio, doing lots of iterations, that's kind of your test for learning how to be a junior, because you are going to be doing that constantly with everything. And you'll be a little well versed in it by then because you've been through this process, but it's still something that you have to kind of work up to. This is your first test. So that is A. B, it's a professional milestone. You are going to need to make a lot of portfolios over your career. That is how we as graphic designers show off the kind of work that we can do. And, that kind of work is always going to be changing. You always want to be, updating and tailoring your portfolio for, the kind of work that you want to get. This is just going to be the first one. This is your first, leap over that hurdle. And it is a very exciting one. But C, it is also a professional tool. You can use this to kickstart your career as a designer. You can really get in there and, take this to prospective employers and say, hey, look at all this cool work that I did. I really pushed myself. I really, iterated and figured out why these projects work a certain way. And, that might get you a job. That might get you an internship. We always tell people, if you're looking for an internship, the time to maybe start doing it is after you compile this document, because you will have this, this major tool that you can use to, give people a sense of who you are as a designer. All right, next up, what do you need to do? Here are the contents and requirements for the sophomore portfolio review. Pretty important stuff. So we're kind of breaking it down into kind of 4 easy parts. And these parts are really fundamentally just kind of 4 separate PDFs. So your first one is your portfolio. And that includes like the bulk of your projects. And we're going to talk some more about kind of what else goes into it. But it's also going to include process from one of your projects, probably your very last project in the book, just, to keep things easy for us and for you. Your second part is your page layout project. One of your projects in your portfolio has to kind of demonstrate page layout across a couple of different spreads, really showing, skill with type handling, type detail in particular. But in your portfolio, you can dress that up a little bit. You can make it kind of fancy. But we like the fancy version just fine. You can take photos of it, but we also want to see it up close. We want to get into that little detail. That's why it's a type detail document. So we ask you to upload a PDF of just that file, just that page layout document, exported as spreads, for us to kind of go through. Your third part is the writing sample. We are kind of mixing up the writing sample a little bit as compared to previous years, but don't worry, I think we've made it a lot clearer. So I'm going to explain more about that in a minute. And finally, your DARS report. If you are not a PSU student, if you're maybe transferring in from somewhere else, a DARS report is a fun little thing we have at PSU that is just about the ugliest thing you've ever seen. But it does tell us, whether you've completed all the required classes or not. If you're transferring in from another institution, your transcript will kind of serve this purpose for us. If you've gotten to the point where you have a PSU student ID number, you probably can run a DARS. You just go to BandWeb to do it. You can reach out to one of us advisors to give you some help if you have questions on how. But for everybody else, a DARS report is kind of what we want. So these 4 parts are going to be one turn-in. These 4 PDFs are going to be submitted to a form on psu.gd/SPR. It's psu.gd/SPR. You'll have all 4 PDFs all ready to go, and you'll just, pop them into that form. It's a pretty straightforward and easy process. But, like uploading anything, you want to give it some time because the internet can be a little unfriendly with regard to uploads. It can be a little slow. So I mentioned we were going to talk some more about the writing sample. So here's some information about just that. Your writing samples this time around, we want them to be about 300 to 400 words long. That's pretty short. You can use a piece of software like Pages, Apple Pages or Microsoft Word to count how many words are in your document if you're a little unsure. There's plenty of web services that do that too. But we ask it to be a project rationale from one of your projects in DES 224, DES 225, or DES 254. That's, kind of some of our later classes in the sophomore sequence. And we ask for it to be one of those because we want you to kind of demonstrate how you think about design, how you think about your choices in design. So really demonstrating your critical thinking skills about, how you're approaching your work, showing off your use of kind of design vocabulary, and kind of explaining some of your design decisions. The why is always what we're looking for. Why have you made this choice? Why is it, this color or this shape or this form factor? That's what we want to be able to see. We also, and this isn't up here in type, but it's pretty important, feel free to think of this as a little bit of a design exercise in and of itself. This is just going to be a PDF on its own, and we're not given any, size specs to it. So, please think about it from a design standpoint. Typeset it well. Don't just give us a, Times New Roman double-spaced essay like you might have had to turn in, for your high school classes. We want something that looks nice and reads well. That part's very important. It should be very easy to read because we are going to have to read a lot of these. The other thing to know is that, if maybe you took the History of Modern Design class, DES 290, at a time when, they required you write up a final paper or an annotated bibliography maybe, that cannot be used for that, the writing sample anymore. So please set those aside and really focus in on your project rationale from DES 224, DES 225, or DES 254. Also, if you're a transfer student, there are some explanations about kind of what this should be in our website, psu.gd/sophomore, and in the Sophomore Portfolio Review Handbook there. But you can also reach out to one of us. This should just be from one of your projects if you're a transfer. Let's talk about the portfolio itself. Your portfolio this time around is going to be 7 projects, with one of those demonstrating skill with type detail. And you're also going to want to include that as a separate PDF file. That's one of those other PDF uploads that I mentioned earlier. You're also going to have to include a process section. So as you're coming through your portfolio, your 7th project should be the one that you use to demonstrate your process with. And it should be, kind of robust. It should show off all the research skill that you have, and also all the iterations that you made and all the changes and improvements that you have brought to that project. We want to see it all. Show us your sketches. So you're also going to need to include some labeling and contextualization for all of these projects. That includes your name and student ID number, a table of contents so we know where things are in the book. And finally, just some project explanations. Each project should be numbered. It should have a title so we kind of know what to think about it as. And just a very, very short little statement explaining the context of the project, because that may not always be evident to us just from looking at it. Finally, all this has got to be in PDF format. So your portfolio is just one big PDF. And let's actually look at some of the anatomy of this thing, because we have tried to simplify this part a lot for you too. Your cover is going to be kind of at the beginning. You're just going to need a slide in your portfolio with your cover, your name, your student ID number on it. That's it. You can make it a little fancier than that, but those two items should be very clear on there. Then you're going to have a table of contents explaining kind of what all your projects are, listing them out. You can give pages in your portfolio page numbers. Treat it like any other document with folios and all that stuff, and make it really easy for us to locate where, say, project 5 is if we need to consult that very quickly. Speaking of that, these are your projects. So after your table of contents, you've got your 7 projects all listed out. And what you do for, projects 1 through 5 can be kind of pretty straightforward. Just showing a mix, a variety of skills and styles and techniques. But projects 6 and 7 are a little special. So project 6 is your page layout project. That you may know is also something that you're going to submit separately, your entire page layout project. But here you're presenting it as project 6, and you can give us a little bit more pizzazz with it. Like if you want to print it out and take photographs of it, feel free. We love it. We can't often see great type detail from that, which is why we ask for that other upload too. But this is your chance to kind of curate our experience with that project and give us focal points to look at as we're going through. Project 7 is also a little bit special, as I mentioned. That is the project that you are including process with. So you want to include, all the basics of the project itself, and then at the very end, show off the process for that project. So that's a little bit of kind of how that works. So what are the dimensions? What are the specs? Your portfolio is going to be set up as a 1920 by 1080 pixel document. You can do this really, really easily in Adobe InDesign. Open up InDesign, fire up a new document, and when it asks you the intent up at the top of that new document dialog box, just choose web. And you can enter 1920 by 1080 px just right from there. I also want you to know that these should be set up as pages and not spreads. You are not going to have to print these things out. So setting up as spreads is really not going to be to your benefit here. Set them up just as pages, like you're setting up a, say, slideshow, and we can go from there. So once you have that set up and all filled in and completed, you're going to export that to a PDF. And there's a couple other little details that we, like to let you know about this this export as well. So part of why I suggest InDesign as what you make your portfolio in is, we want the images to be pretty good. Those of you who are, past the marker of DES 200, you may know about the great links panel. And in that links panel, you can see the relative PPI of images. That is how dense the pixel count is in an image with regard to kind of how it's set on the page. So we want these to be 144 PPI, all the images in your document. And the good rule of thumb that I always encourage if you're trying to figure out, if you got it right, is when you export a PDF, if you can zoom in on stuff, images in particular, and still see a lot of detail, like more than you could see if you were just looking at the image as it's sort of rendered as, then you have exported it correctly. You want to be able to see lots of detail because that's what we're going to be looking for. You're also going to need slightly larger type than if you were making a print document. 24 point is about the sweet spot for body type that we have kind of seen as we've looked through these. So really kind of use that as a marker. You can maybe make some of your type a little bit smaller than 24 point, but your body type should be 24 point. And of course, you can make other type larger than that. Just, try to make sure that type doesn't just take over your whole portfolio. Finally, very important, there is a maximum file size for uploads to psu.gd/SPR. It's about 20 megabytes, and that is for each file. If you can somehow make a 20 megabyte DARS file, I'll be very impressed. But collectively, probably this is going to be about 100 megabytes a person. With all your files combined, close to that. And we want to be, really sensitive to that because that takes some time. So try to make these file sizes as small as you can without losing quality, and aim for under 20 megabytes. Adobe Acrobat actually has some great tools for reducing file size. So I would encourage you to, use your Creative Cloud subscription, go into Acrobat, and try out some of those great tools. So very important. Don't be late. Do not be late, because portfolios missing any component are going to be disqualified. It's kind of a very important test, this process, sort of giving you the context that you might need to succeed in a professional environment where, if you are, turning in a project to your, say art director or client, and it's missing a bunch of stuff that they asked for, they're not going to be happy. You might be, out looking for a job. We require all this stuff because we think it is really integral to success on this endeavor. So portfolios missing any component are going to be disqualified. And late submissions cannot be accepted. We're also going to throw in there, if you say don't check thoroughly what you're uploading to that form before you do it, and try to email us after the fact and say, hey, oh no, I've uploaded the wrong thing. I've uploaded something with fewer projects than I need. We're not going to be able to accept that either. That is a hard time. So really what you need to do is you need to check and double check what you're submitting before you submit it. Make sure everything's in there and make sure you have enough time to do it. Because again, we can't accept anything that is late. All right. So how do scores work? How do you actually, get past the marker for this thing? So let's take a look at how we're evaluating these portfolios. And it's a pretty simple scale. It's just 1 through 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is, some of you may have looked at previous years and you may have noticed a scale up to 5. We've never given a 5. We never will either, because we've eliminated the 5, in part because, it's just not realistic. If you're at a 5, you don't need to be in school anymore. So the scale is ultimately exactly the same as it's always been. The only real difference is that there is just, 4 numbers in it. So how do you pass? Well, you get above a 1. So anything that is, a 0 or a 1 or, even a 1.99999, that is below average. That is unsatisfactory. That, and that unfortunately is not a passing score for this process. Whereas anything 2 or above, 2.0 all the way up to 4, it's showing that you're evolving skills, or above average, or in the case of a 4, an advanced, designer. 4s are pretty rare. 4s are very, very rare. I mentioned we're removing 5, but even 4s are quite rare. So Any of those scores are passing. And you just have to hit a 2 to pass, but you should aim above it because, every year these portfolios get better. And we are always going to be evaluating based on, where we think the median is that year based on, just all of our collective judgments as professionals. So really push yourself. Try to aim for that 3 or that 4, or just pretend there's still a 5 and aim for that. But you just have to get over a 2. That's the line. So what are we looking for? Variety. Variety is the big thing. We love variety. We love variety shows. We love variety mixed nuts. That's nothing. Anyway, we want to show, or we want to see in looking at these, that you are capable of doing lots of different things, that you are not just, somebody who has a style that you've brought, to your work and you're just going to keep working in that style. That's not what graphic design is. You're going to have a hard time finding work more than likely doing that. So we want to be able to see that you are capable of lots of different things, different illustration styles, different concepts. So it's not just all kind of, one cinematic universe of stuff. And what's more, different type treatments, that you're not just using the same typeface for everything. One that we see a lot, and I think deserves special attention, is varied color palettes. I know we all like specific colors. That's how human brains are. That's just normal. But you have to push yourself into zones of discomfort in this practice all the time. You will have clients who want you to do colors that maybe you don't particularly like, and you'll have to figure out how to make work. So varying the color palettes in your work gives us a sense of that you can handle that kind of breadth. And it just shows that, you know how to work in more than, say, just black and red. I don't know why it's black and red that we always see the most of. If somebody has violated this tenet, it's almost always at least that. It's really funny. But know just going into it that if you have a couple projects that share the same palette, you should mix them up. You should, try to tweak them, and push them beyond just looking so similar. We also want to see type detail, that you know how to work with type, not just, the big splashy, decorative display styles, which, expressive type, it's wonderful. I love it. But a lot of what you're going to be doing professionally is setting body text and understanding just the basics of hierarchy. And we need to see that in your portfolio. That's why we ask for that type detail project. But, it's a good idea to show that in a variety of places in your portfolio. Also, pretty important are projects that show unique concepts and ideas. We want to see that you know how to think through a problem beyond just, kind of the basics, the obvious. Obviousness is really not a good thing in this industry. And also not a good thing is, kind of design plagiarism. You want to be, showing that you know how to come up with ideas and, push beyond just what's on your mood board, making just a direct replica of it, and pushing what's beyond just how anyone else might handle it. We want to see how you think. So push your concepts and ideas. Finally, we are also looking for a format that doesn't distract from the work. The portfolio is in a way kind of your 8th project, even though it's not, that on paper. And a portfolio that kind of detracts from the work, that is, too in your face with maybe how it handles some of the contextualization, or the images are presented in a way that makes them, say, too small to really see, or is just kind of too stylized. That is going to be a real detriment. And I think the other place that sort of comes into play is in digital mockups. If you're using digital mockups, if those mockups are not showing off the work very well, then we're probably not going to get a good impression of it, no matter how good the work actually is. So really think through all the parts of how you are, expressing that work in your portfolio. So let's talk about evaluation criteria. And this is how we are really like handling the evaluation portion of it. And all this stuff comes directly from the handbook that you'll find on psu.gd/sophomore. This is how those spreads in the handbook are laid out. We've got, main headings for the different areas that we're evaluating. Stuff like the writing sample. It's got its own evaluation criteria right there. Research, process, composition and gestalt, the 2D design principles, color, use of existing imagery, creation of original imagery, typographic structure, expressive type and lettering, concept, technical and handcraft, and risk-taking and originality. Those are kind of how we're evaluating things. And as you look across, you might see, we've got our same 1 to 4 scale. We actually even have a 0 on here, just so you can see kind of what the baseline is. That's always been present, but we've never put it on this thing. So we're just kind of making it a little bit more apparent this year. As you look across, you'll notice like these are pretty clearly labeled below average, evolving skills, above average, advanced. And this language that is kind of shown here is exactly what you will get in your portfolio review evaluation at the very end. So really trying to make it as clear as possible to everybody, just kind of how this carries out. So if you are, trying to figure out like, well, how do I get a 3 on the portfolio? Well, you want to be above average in as many of these categories as you can, and really, look at the category's description, look at kind of what the various levels in here are, and try to go from there. It's pretty straightforward, and you really want to spend some time with these evaluation criteria because they're pretty important. We've made that a lot more readable this year too. So what is in one of these things? What goes into a portfolio anyway? We've got some examples here to help. So very important in here. This example portfolio, this very stripped down basic version of what a portfolio could be. We've got your first and last name and your student ID number on the cover. And you can go a lot fancier than this with your cover. Don't look at this and go, this is it. This is what I want it to be. You could, but you're all graphic designers. I bet you can do better than this. So just make sure that this information is on there. And really, I want that to be kind of the mode going forward in this sort of fake portfolio that we're showing you. We're just trying to give you some ideas as to maybe how you can handle some of this stuff in here. So next up, we have your table of contents. Notice it's labeled contents, plural, and not content. I don't know where table of content started happening to students' books, but it is not that. It is contents or table of contents. And you can see our projects listed out here. We've got project titles, and they're all numbered 1 through 7. Very, very easy. They also all have page numbers, which is extremely helpful as well. You don't have to include page numbers in here, but in terms of giving us something to navigate towards as we go through this, it's really helpful. Also listed down below after Project 7 is process. So if we need to, we can skip right to that process section. And you can ignore the written sample portion at the end. That's not included in our portfolios anymore, but it's on this slide already. So let's take a look at kind of some examples of how you can handle different portfolio pieces. First, just to show off kind of how a page in a portfolio could work. We've got, project number, nice and big, really easy. And then we've got the name of the piece right below it, showing that off with a little space to give us some context. For this project, this is just lorem ipsum. You can ignore that. but it should be really clear kind of what this project is with a page number at the bottom. Also, good to take a look here. This project is one that was done in print, and this student actually photographed it. Got a little background and set up a camera and some good lights and photographed it. And it's really simple, but it really looks good. And this is, I would say, probably taken with a DSLR, one of the bigger, fancier cameras. So if you have one of those, it's really great. You can take photos with a cell phone camera, but they may not be quite as good. You're probably going to have to do a lot more editing to make them look nice. But the other thing that I wanted to point out with this too is notice the white background in this photo and the white text. Notice how it's actually white. Most photos you do have to actually color correct. You want the photo to look as good as you wanted the project to look. If the photo that we get is really blurry or really yellowed or that kind of weird bluish color that you get from photographing under fluorescent lights, that's maybe not going to give us the best sense of what the project actually looks like. So you really want to be thinking about kind of all the things that go into making a good depiction of your project. Here's another project we've got in here, and this one you might notice, wow, what a crisp photo. It isn't. This is not a crisp photo. This is actually a digital mock-up. There are lots of places that you can get mock-ups online. Some are free, some are paid, and you're going to hear lots more about that from your peers in the in the time between now and the portfolio review. But this is an example of a pretty good mock-up. There's nothing in this mock-up that really detracts from the work itself. Even the little tape, since this is a poster, it kind of makes sense. What's most important, though, about this mock-up is you can see the work clearly. It looks crisp, it looks clear, and it's sort of adding to the overall flair. You can see there's kind of some color matching with some of the bars in here and that background. It really kind of is sort of made to look fun. Even the tape, I feel like that's kind of hearkening back to those bars. So this is an example of where the presentation is really elevating the work. Here's another, example of a piece. This is a student who worked on a website, and we now have some interaction classes down in the 100 levels, and maybe even some projects in the 200 level. If you are showing off a website, a mock-up is a great way to do it because there's just websites are hard to make into an object that makes sense in a portfolio. But this is a digital mock-up. This is sort of photoshopped into that computer screen. And it looks pretty good. You can see pretty much everything about the website, and looks clear enough. And I think it elevates this website above just, what a screenshot just kind of dropped in there would look like. Here is another project. This is the famed record project that some of you may have done before. And this is not a printed one. This is a digital mock-up from one of those creative marketplaces that you'll find online. And a great example of one of those really succeeding here. You can see, the background is really like capturing the vibe of this record. The texture of the record sleeve, you can see a little bit of reflection on it, but it doesn't feel like it's, just like totally overwhelming the design that's on there. And there's even little displays on the, record itself for the label. I love it. It's wonderful and classy, very fun. So you can see that all of these things together really, add to the overall kind of aesthetic of the piece, and make it seem, all the more just holistically considered. It's really nice. Here's another project. So this is this student's type detail project. You might notice that this is labeled Project 5 when really it should be Project 6 now. So ignore that part. But you can tell that, this student is sort of taking advantage of the idea that, you're going to get to see these spreads as a reviewer in a lot more detail later on in that separate PDF. So it's your chance as a designer to show off, some details that you are very proud of. So like this student was really proud of that opening spread to this piece that has, picture Dean Bynum on there and his signature and this nice little letter. It's a really cool spread, and we get to see a little type detail there. We get to see, some really nice sort of, pattern and color, and it feels very expressive and fun. And that's a spread now that when I go to look at that piece as a reviewer, I'm going to pay a lot more attention to because I liked it here. Same thing with the spread next to it. This is one of the layouts in the book, and really just trying to give the overall impression of the page. It's a pretty small setup. We're not just dropping a bunch of equally sized pages on here. We're really thinking about the hierarchy of what we're showing off if we're showing off multiple images. You always want there to be clear hierarchy on anything you lay out, including your portfolio. We want to be able to tell what the main image is that you want us to look at. And, this smaller one, it's good. It's there to show off what it can do, but it's that one on the left that's really pulling the major weight. One thing that you can also do too, we haven't shown any examples of it up until now, is you can show off multiple pages for projects. You don't want to do this necessarily all the time because it's going to make your file huge, but it's a great chance for you to maybe go into more detail on a project, or if you worked on a project with multiple parts and pieces to it, like a whole branding system, say. You want to be able to show that off. Labels also for, like bottles or something. That's a great one where, having a little bit more space to show off some of those details is useful. We don't need to see for that, like all the labels that you did, but showing off some key crops of those labels are really maybe going to add to things. Here's another piece. So this is a Rizzo piece. This was done on the Rizzo back in the olden times. So this is just by nature of things a printed piece. And, being that it's a calendar, it's kind of a hard thing to photograph when you really think about it because, if you want to show off all these different things at once and maybe keep it within one spread, the calendar itself as an object kind of fights you on that front. So what this student did is, they took these prints and they scanned them in. And, you can see they look pretty good. They're all stacked up. And for something like this, I think where there's a lot of variety, it makes sense to have all these kind of stacked up in this way. It's always a good idea with maybe some other stuff to, really be conscious of, like showing off different scales for different things. So it's not just all the same scale. There's enough variety in this that it makes sense here. Here's another printed piece photographed. It's actually kind of two pieces at once here because we've got the outside and the inside of this same piece. This is a type specimen book. And you can see, we got, Mr. and Mrs. as the title page, this nice clean cover. But right next to it, we've got that interior poster all unfolded. So what this student did, brilliantly, is printed two copies. So one could be unfolded on the side, and one could be all folded up nice and neat on this wonderful red backdrop. Great idea if you are photographing things. Go to Blick, go to an art supply store. Just get a big sheet of paper from the big sheet of paper flat files, and you can set your work on it and really capture some of that color, emphasize it. But that unfolded piece there, you get to see more of the detail on it, and we don't need a whole different spread to see that. It's all in one, and I think it makes for a really wonderful first impression for this project. I love it. Here's another project that I think really is lent some support by how it is photographed. So you don't have to have these just be on a clean, nice, like, smooth background like you're photographing in a studio or something, because if you're like me, you maybe don't have that at home. Even though, you can get them on Amazon for not too much, little boxes to shoot in. But this project is really kind of about, something that feels very organic, very tangible. So it really makes almost more sense to show it off in an environment that would lend it support. So this student, they've got this cloth backdrop, this linen, looks really nice. And then there's kind of a woven surface that it's sitting on, like a basket top, and some dried flowers. And I think all together, it really, you're kind of art directing this image. You're making this very simple label really elevated by virtue of how it is presented. And that's exactly what you want for a portfolio piece. You want to take what you already have and show it off as accurately as you can, but also just make it better by how it's presented. This is made better by how it is presented and photographed here. And this is super simple. These are things that you could all, head on over to Michael's or something and get for probably less than $10. And it really, it makes a big difference. You might have all this stuff already. And also kind of showing off some of the different aspects of this system, because it's not just one label, it's a whole system here. You can see that, we've got a couple different angles here, and there's, even though each one of these has a front and back label, this student knows that, we don't always need to see everything that you did. We don't need to see, the digital versions all laid out side by side. We just want to see kind of the story that you're trying to tell here. So, that big image in the upper left, it really shows off some of the detail of this project really nicely, showing off some of the breadth. But, in that smaller image in the right, we can see what the back of one of these looks like. And we just need to see one to get that story. But there's a clear scale differentiation here, really, showing off where this student wants us to look. And again, the photographs are elevating the work. Here's another piece that is done on Rizzo. This student did this poster, and, they came to one of us and they said, gosh, is this poster going to be enough? And we often will say, if you have just a poster, be thinking of how you can expand it, how you can make that project better, that you can, build on it. So they tried to make it into a whole system. This is a voting poster, so why not make some cool space-themed voting buttons? I love it. It's so nice. And, even then, the buttons are in this lovely little package with another sort of risographed illustration on the top. It's a really nice way of, kind of building a larger system out of something that you might already have. And a great lesson. If you have something that, maybe is just a single piece, you want to build it out into something more to really show off, all the different ways that it could be. Maybe it's multiple posters, maybe it's, something additive like the buttons and the button package here. So a lot of questions that we get are about process after you really think about what that final project in your portfolio is. What does a project process look like? In your process document, you want to kind of show off all the stages of how you made this thing where it is. The project that you choose to show off for process, it makes sense maybe to also include your rationale for that. It doesn't have to be your writing sample, and you always still want to submit a writing sample at the end separately. There's going to be a whole separate upload for that. But if you have, some writing about why you made the choices you did for this project, it's great to include them so we kind of understand that more. But you can see this student is really starting from brainstorming, thinking about all the parts of this project that they want, doing some word mapping and some sketching to try to figure out like, maybe where they can go with this project potentially. Then, hey, doing that competitive analysis, like actually figuring out if you're going to make a yogurt brand or an almond milk brand, as this is not yogurt. What else is going on in the almond milk space, especially for kids, because they kind of realize that, some of these friendlier almond milks for kids are just maybe not so nice looking. So you can see they've pulled out a lot of competitive analysis in terms of research, a lot of just general research about what almond milk is and kind of what makes milk alternatives different. So really getting to understand the product that you're trying to sell. And that takes them into the mood boarding stage. They don't start mood boarding until they have figured out what it is that they're doing. And there isn't just one mood board. There's kind of a couple that are showing off like different directions that this could go. You never want to go with your first idea, and doing multiple mood boards really helps with that. So you can see the stuff on the left looks pretty different than the stuff on the right. There's some stuff in common, but they definitely represent different directions. This is kind of a branding project too. So this student had to come up with a name. So you can see there's a little bit of mind mapping over on the right, but they're also just, trying to think of like, well, is there something we can do with like translating it into a different language that would maybe, make it seem all the more, interesting as a product. So they tried a bunch of, translations of words that they felt like were representative of this thing into some other languages and found something that they really liked. And also, because this is a branding project, they had to do lots and lots of sketches. But whatever your project is, you should be doing lots and lots of sketches. So these don't have to be presented like super crisply. These are just camera phone photos for sure. But we're able to see from this, all the different sketches and iterations and considerations that they're making. So you can see there's some sketches from the mark. There's some sketches of like, different kind of illustrative little characters that might appear on these. There's some sketches even for the packaging in this system. And they're not really lingering on any of these ideas too long. They're going to be refined in the next stage, whatever, is best, but just showing off some views here. And then, from there, kind of taking some of the marks that were more successful and refining them and pushing them, and seeing, the directions that you could go. So you can see that final frame on the right, that's showing off essentially all the kind of final round hand sketches for what this could be. They're pretty different. Same thing with packaging, took those initial sketches and started to kind of build them out into things that, were a little bit more robust. Really thinking also about kind of what this, since this is a milk, what this milk is going to be packaged as. Like, milk could come in a carton, but it could also come in a bottle. And you can see they're experimenting with like, what would a bottle look like for this? What bottles could I get? What label would sit right on them? And how would the label have to be? Because a bottle is not just, straight up and down. It's kind of got a curve to it if you want to use as much real estate on it as possible. So now starting to take some of those sketches and refine them a little bit, and put them into sort of the digital sphere. Work through a couple iterations here, and then, also go back and look at, sketching again to see if you can push things even further. And then, take those, digitize them again. So going through a couple different iterations on all of these is pretty important. You can see there's a lot of growth between this and this. And that's what we like to see, that you are learning, that you're exploring as you're going. And even more iteration here. So once that student figured out kind of the basics of what this, could be, they're really pushing it to make it like the best that it can be, experimenting with like different places the lettering could sit, different, backgrounds, all kinds of different shapes, even like in some of them, the shapes overlap with the text. Some of them, they don't. Even like bringing in a little strawberry icon more explicitly in some of these. Expanding this out to some of the other flavors as well, because this is flavored almond milk. This isn't just, run of the mill almond milk that tastes like almonds. Really like showing off, if you're going to have a system with multiple flavors in it, how do the colors work? How does this system carry over and look consistent even when it's, being expressive and more tailored towards, kind of what's in each of the milks. So iterating again, and you can see on the right, this student is even starting to think in terms of like, well, how am I going to present these? How am I going to photograph these? So they got, a couple bottles of milk, the bottles that they wanted to use for the final one, and started playing around with different setups like crayons and party supplies, throwing things into the frame, all kinds of fun, different angles, and even thinking about backdrop, like that cool purple backdrop. Maybe that being something that would be interesting for all of the different colors. Going back, working on sort of the iterations again, seeing if you can push them even further. Same thing with the mark, going back, really pushing it again, refining it, and not just, settling for good enough. You want to push these well beyond, where you feel like, they're fine, into something that is great. You want to hit that 3 or that 4, not just a 2. And then once you do that, even more iterations. I'm showing you all of these because you should be iterating this much on everything you do. You should really, really be pushing it. And if you're not, now's a great time to start. Really go back into your projects from your class, even after, you're done with the class, and refine them some more so that they are, as robustly explored as something like this. And finally, the student kind of started to think even beyond like the place where they started, like, the photographed things. They realized that this pattern was such an interesting component of this project that maybe digital mockups were the way to go instead, because then the pattern could just be the backdrop. So there's a lot of kind of fun exploration of that pattern. And what's great too is you really get to see some of the texture. There's some really lovely texture in this. And here's some more digital mock-ups of the final milk containers, looking pretty fancy. And, I think it is a great exploration of kind of what this project could be. We've looked at what a portfolio looks like and what goes into one, but you may still have the question, what if I don't pass? Well, it can happen, but that doesn't mean it's the end. It is not the end. Here's what you can do. Well, you can always revise and try again. You can go through the review more than once. And I will say, we've had plenty of people who pass on the second or third tries, and they become top grads. This process really makes you a better designer, whether you go through it one time or multiple times. And I think especially for the folks who do go through multiple times, they tend to, be a lot more aggressive in how they are thinking about, getting through those iterations and really making the work the best it can be. So don't feel bad if you don't pass the first time, because plenty of amazing people who've gone on to really impressive careers, are in that same boat. Just keep pushing your work is most important. And that brings us to item 2. You get feedback for areas and pieces that need work and suggestions of classes to review. We use that rubric language for all kinds of, evaluations of your portfolio as a whole. But all us full-time faculty also leave comments on your portfolio about what pieces maybe are strong, what areas you need to work on. And you can also just talk to us beforehand and get some feedback from us. We're not going to tell you whether we think you're going to pass the portfolio review or not. That's not what those meetings are for. And frankly, that's not how the evaluation process works. We're always, assigning you randomly to different reviewers, so that there's a limitation of who is looking at it. And we also average out our reviewer scores. Your portfolio is reviewed by 3 different people, so you can be assured that the average of those 3 scores is what you're getting, not just any one score. So you can talk to us, you can get our feedback about projects and help you, kind of revise things. You can also use that time to finish up some of your other stuff that you got to do. You got to do the cluster and the capstone and, the sync and the frink. And if you haven't done some of that stuff, get on it, get done with it. Now's a great time. You also maybe have art history requirements that you might need. There's some graphic design electives that you can take if you have not passed the portfolio review the first time. We always offer up DES 300 to folks who haven't passed the first time to give you kind of a leg up and really help you refine your type detail work, because oftentimes that is the place where people need the most help. Those of you who are on the 2020 BFA degree in particular, you have a great opportunity to get a minor along with your degree and have it, not necessarily count against you in terms of, trying to just get 180 credits. So go explore getting a minor, because it's a great opportunity to touch upon some of the other resources this wonderful university has to offer. Okay, sure. But how do I actually pass, though? Well, if you may be in that boat, what I always tell folks is make a plan, PLAN. And let's look at that acronym. So P, please revise and get advised. Get feedback and incorporate it. That thing you got a bunch of sticky notes on, say, maybe from one of my type classes, still has all of those problems in it until you fix them. So if you have, gotten a low score on a project, fix it rather than just submitting it to the portfolio review. And I will say, if you've gotten a high score on a project, still revise it, still fix it, because there's no such thing as a perfect project. And, if you were in a class, even like fall term, you are a better designer by the time you reach portfolio review at the end of spring. So use that skill to your advantage. Keep growing and changing these things. And don't be afraid to reach out to us for feedback or, get help from outside. Look into time management. Plan out a schedule for production and revision, and don't be late to deadlines. The big deadline is, of course, the one that we are most sensitive about. Be aware of when you need to turn in. But time management is pretty important to being a designer, especially if you are a freelancer. You may not have somebody, giving you specific deadlines for things that are very, very precise. You'll have to kind of spread your work out on your own. So really figure out, when and how you're going to schedule out production and revision, so you can get in all those iterations on your projects and refine them as best as you can. Acknowledge that the work speaks for itself. Grades aren't considered as we're considering work for the portfolio review beyond that you just need a C- or better in a GD class. The work alone is what's reviewed, separate from course grading requirements. And we tell you this because, you might get an A on a project and you might get a lot of A's, but, if your work is, not really performing at the level that we expect, you may not pass. What is most important is that you are pushing your work and that you are showing real signs of growth. We do not consider your grades at all, grades on projects, grades in classes, beyond just, PSU's minimums for our major. But what is most important is the work itself that is evaluated separately from those grading requirements. In classes, you have all kinds of bonuses and milestones that you're trying to hit, but if the work isn't good separate from that stuff, it might not be a good project. And finally, N, now plan out options. Thinking about a path forward if you don't pass is important and healthy, even if you feel confident. And that goes for everyone out there. You might be, feeling like you are the best designer that you know. Everyone tells you you are the best. And that can kind of be a curse. That can be a little bit of a trap because you might get really complacent. You might say, I'll just throw this together at the last minute. Yeah, I don't need to do any revisions. Yeah, that's a great sound to be saying into the mic. But anyway, you are really best off, no matter how good you think you are, if you consider, both paths forward, whether you pass or don't pass. So making sure that you have a plan if you don't pass. Are you going to go get your minor? Are you going to complete some of your other requirements? Are you maybe going to switch to another major like, the arts and letters degree, which is a wonderful option if you feel like you don't want to continue to pursue graphic design, but want to use some of those credits for things. Finding that path forward is really good. And working that out with an advisor is really recommended. So how can you get help? Speaking of advisors, you are not alone in this. We have tons and tons of resources in this program to help you out. Info sessions, you're kind of at one. You're at the first part of one. But the second part is what you really need. So keep going. Go to that second info session and, really ask some good questions. Clarify what you need. So attend both parts of the info session, and it's pretty important. Sign up for the newsletter on psu.ged, or just pay visits to psu.ged all the time, because we don't have posters in the hallway anymore. That is where you can find out all the news you need to know about, important stuff going into review time, dates, deadlines, updates if we need to. Also sign up for faculty advising. We have advising hours, all us graphic design faculty, every single week. Mine are on Tuesdays, but lots of other people have them on different times. So go to art-design.youcanbook.me, and you can see all of our advising for the whole term up there. If for some reason that we are all booked up, you can always go to our drop-in hours. Those are also listed on that same page, art-design.youcanbook.me. You don't need an appointment to go to those. Just pop right in, and as long as we're not already talking to somebody, we'll let you in and talk to you. Other resources, we got this whole cool mentorship thing where students who have already passed the review are ready to talk to you. They want to answer your questions. They want to give you advice and really kind of guide your iterations and just, maybe let you know what it's like on the other side of this thing. The signups for that are going to be out soon. Keep an eye on psu.gd and the newsletter, and you'll be the first to know when those signups go live. So mentorship, it is really cool, really important, and it is coming soon. You can also, to that end, kind of find a group that can support your, work or help just in general, or maybe even go to a help session. We always see students putting together stuff like this. Last year we had a couple of Slack groups. We had a couple of like Zoom help sessions. So look out for that stuff because we want to keep it going into this year. You can use Instagram to share stuff. We have a robust community on Instagram. If you just share with the hashtag PSUGDSPR and search that hashtag too, you can find other sophomore portfolio review students who are maybe looking for feedback and help, and give them that help, and maybe they'll return the favor. And finally, Be Honest. Our Be Honest event traditionally happens in spring. This year it is happening in February. And Be Honest is a great chance to get your work in front of some professionals for feedback. We're going to have signups for Be Honest, coming out soon as of this recording, which is happening in early January. And that will sort of give you a sense of, what your work is like from a professional standpoint, because we're always trying to evaluate it from that standpoint. What does this profession say about this work? So be honest. Check out psu.gd/be honest, and you can learn more about the event and sign up for meetings with professionals. These nice little short meetings with professionals. If you want to talk work or just kind of what it's like out in the design world. Could be whatever you want. So, to kind of wrap things up, you need to submit by Sunday, January 6th at 8 p.m. And submissions are going to be open on Thursday, June 3rd at 9 a.m. So all those PDFs that we talked about, you're going to need to upload to psu.gd/SPR. And I know maybe you have some questions. I get it. Well, I can't answer them for you right now. You're going to need to go to part 2 for some of that. So these are your part 2 times: Tuesday, January 19th from 12 to 1 p.m., Wednesday, February 17th from 12 to 1 p.m., and Tuesday, April 6th from 12 to 1 p.m. Everyone has to attend one of these, and you can pick any one you want in addition to watching this video, but attendance will be taken, and you can find the signups on psu.gd/sophomore. So that is all I have for you for this part of the info session. Hope to see you at the next part. But thank you all so much.